Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Poets and Quants' Online MBA Student Perspective panel. Today, we're joined by current students from Carnegie Mellon Tepper, UNC Kenan-Flagler, Florida Warrington, and Tulane Freeman. I'm your host, Christy Blyzeffer of Poets and Quants. Please feel free to use the Q&A function to submit any questions you have for our panelists, and I'll do my best to get to those at the end of the session. But first, let's begin by getting to know our panelists, and thanks to each of you for taking the time today. If you would all introduce yourself, your current role in company, the MBA program you're attending, and a fun fact about yourself. And Justin, we'll start with you.
Hi, sure. And thanks for having me, Christy. Hi, everyone. My name is Justin. I'm currently in my final year at Carnegie Mellon. I actually left my job last summer to complete an internship, but in my most recent role, prior to that, I worked in Teva Pharmaceuticals here in New Jersey. I was a senior analyst on the market access team where I helped to develop and execute pricing and contracting strategies that really ensured patient access to medication. A fun fact, my dad, actually, when I was younger, was a professional bodybuilder. And when I was about 6 years old, I was pictured on the cover of Muscle magazine with him.
Oh, that's fun. I love the fun facts more than anything. So great. Christina.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's so nice to be here. I'm currently attending the Online MBA program at UNC Kenan-Flagler. I live in North Carolina in Durham, and it's around 20 minutes away from the UNC campus. My background is in pharmaceutical and life sciences, and I'm currently working for Duke University's Marcus Center for Cellular Cures. So I do get some, excuse the cat, I do get some heat for being a Duke and UNC, two of those in one. So a little interesting there. But my role in my current role at Duke University, I focus on regulatory operations and managing quality systems that support our biological products. And fun fact about me, whenever I was moving across country, I moved from DC area to Washington State. And during that time, it was a 100-year anniversary for the U.S. National Park Services. And so during that trip, I actually hiked Angel's Landing, and it was the day before my birthday. So
Oh,
pretty
that's
fun.
great. Yeah, great. Chris, how about you?
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. My name is Chris Taylor. I'm currently a second year student at the Warrington College of Business, University of Florida, in the online 2-year program. I'm the vice president of operations for Mantis Security Corporation. So we do a lot of cybersecurity in the DC Beltway area. And a fun fact about me is I retired from the Marine Corps after 20 years, 3 years ago.
Oh, congratulations and thanks for your service.
Thank you.
And Hunter.
Yeah, Christy, thank you for having me. My name is Hunter Ball, and I'm in commercial real estate. I have a company called Ball Commercial Real Estate, and we focus on developable commercial land in and around growing areas in the state of Texas. And a fun fact about me is I love ping pong, and I actually love it so much that I went to the Olympics in Rio in 2016 and watched multiple ping pong matches and had a blast doing it.
Oh, how fun. That's great. Well, thank you all for taking time. I think the student perspective is really important for students who are now in a place you guys used to be in trying to decide whether to pursue an online MBA. So Christina, we'll start with you and just really get into that thought process a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about that decision to pursue an online MBA and why you chose your particular program.
Yeah, I decided to pursue an online MBA for the flexibility, but I also wanted to pivot to a more strategic and cross-functional role within my organization without stepping away from my current job. I did explore a number of different online MBA programs, a master's in public health or a master's in healthcare administration as options, but the MBA really gave me the most flexibility and it also had the most breadth. So I was able to get a lot out of that currently. What drew me to the UNC program specifically was its emphasis on team-based learning. They have a strong healthcare background and support operations curriculum as well. So those were two things that I was really looking for in a program. And of course, the flexibility of an online program was really what made it stand out. But also being in close proximity to the campus, because I did get accepted for multiple online programs. So just being in the North Carolina area really cemented my decision to go to UNC specifically.
Yeah, that way if you want to go to campus, you're kind of right there. Chris, how about you?
No, it's a fun question, I think, for all of us. I grew up in Florida, and after traveling the world in my previous career, I knew that I wanted a little bit more, to Christina's point, breadth of knowledge. I already had my master's degree while I was active duty, and so it was all leadership based. I knew I wanted to understand more about what's happening in the business world and how to get better involved. Picking University of Florida, for me, it was about ROI. So Florida ranks number one for online ROI, which was very, very important to me as far as cost and loans and things like that, especially when eggs are $75 a dozen. So Florida has been really good, and they really try to develop an online community of folks that are doing their online MBA, but make them feel like they're a part of Gator Nation. And obviously, it's a great week to be a Florida Gator. So,
Absolutely. Hunter.
Yeah, so I would say I always knew I was going to do an MBA program, but when Tulane sort of recently offered their online program, it really kind of opened up their school to someone who maybe is not actually there in the city in New Orleans, and just in general with an online program, there's if you go in class in person, it takes away from some other things that you maybe want doing. Like for example, for me, my oldest kid is 2.5, and kind of wanting to be with my family, not having to take days, a complete day to go to school or go to class or leave at night for a class at night. Tulane had an awesome offering for their online program. And so I'm actually able to help my wife put the kids to sleep and do my responsibilities, as a family man here, and then go in the next room over and plug into Tulane's community. And so it really worked out well for me, and been very impressed with Tulane's online MBA program. So.
Very good. Justin, tell us about, your decision for an online MBA and why Tepper.
Yeah, sure. So with me, it's a bit different. I was very fixed on my goal to become a banker. And so it was clear in my initial research that at that point in my career, breaking into the industry via like some notable business school was going to be the best option. I did consider full-time programs, although I'm married with kids, and at the time had recently just bought a home, and so all that coincided that it was really difficult to kind of relocate and join a full-time program. So I would say, like, with that, there are several factors that led me to Tepper. Given my career goal, the first was the banking connection. I really, Tepper, although they don't produce a large number of bankers, they do have a reputation for producing strong bankers, and I thought that really checked the box for me. I really wanted to make sure that I had the same access to the resources that all the full-timers would have, particularly in recruiting, and Tepper offered that. And then I guess the third piece is really the structure of the program. Tepper splits their traditional, what is normally a traditional semester into two, and they're called minis. They're about 6 to 7 weeks, 6 to 7 weeks long. And I thought that was a nice value add because it gives the opportunity to really kind of increase the breadth of the courses that you want to kind of take for over the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for that. That's some good insight. Chris, let's talk a little bit more about that learning experience. The kind of the course load you have through the week, the emphasis on group work or individual. Is it all asynchronous, or do you have times where you have to all log in as a cohort? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'd say it's a great mixture of both. There are a lot of group projects. There's a lot of individual work. Florida does a good job of kind of pacing it well. They understand when it's a difficult class. I think a lot of folks that choose a 2-year program are not business majors, right? I didn't do accounting or finance, and so I'm a big dumb animal when it comes to math. So statistics is hard, and so they measure that really well, and they kind of give you what is challenging, but also manageable, right? Especially we're all professionals. We're in the business world. We have full-time jobs, and we have families, and we have kids and other obligations. So there's a lot of individual work that that is very challenging individually, but then there's also group projects that mirror a lot of the business scenarios you'll be in. So Florida has done a really good job of getting the mix right, as far as I'm concerned. Terms are 10 weeks long. And there's I would say, for somebody who's not business minded, coming out of undergraduate, what they've done at Warrington has really pushed a lot of us to achieve more. So,
Hunter.
Yeah, I would say they have their classes. We meet once a week, and it's the entire class meets online with our professor. And then I would say there's a little bit of group work. There's not a ton of group work, and I think not having an emphasis on an enormous amount of group work is positive because there's so many mixing schedules. It's not like you're in a classroom where you go and you have the students there. So scheduling when it comes to a group is on the more challenging side, finding everyone's schedule to match up to work on group projects. So they do a good job of having mostly individual work, but there is group projects for some of the harder courses, some of the accounting data courses. They want students to work with each other if they have questions, and so it's a good mixture, but it's more on the individual side because of there's so many different schedules to accommodate with these online program that Tulane has.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, how about the experience at Tepper?
Yeah, very similar. And I remember, like in my research, I once heard someone describe business school as one big group project, and that does hold true pretty much at Tepper. I'd say not all, but certainly most of the courses emphasize group work, which, given kind of what Hunter had talked about, kind of like the scheduling and stuff, I did grumble at initially, but you kind of get used to it, and it's just extra skill to develop, this collaborative skill that's kind of essential to most corporate jobs. I'd say that in terms of the course load, each mini you carry at least 2 courses. Each course meets once a week with a live lecture, the same faculty that teaches the full-time program. And in addition to the lecture, for the rest of the week, you then have kind of this asynchronous material, the pre-recorded lectures, the readings, and homework assignments to kind of fill up the rest of the week.
Very good. And Christina, the experience at Kenan-Flagler.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to a lot of others. There's a really great balance between the live courses and asynchronous work. And it does depend on the courses. So the way UNC's program works is that the first year is core classwork. So there's qualitative and quantitative classes. You usually want to pair one of each of those. And those are for 10-week periods. And then after all of that fun, you get to move on to your electives. And your electives are only 5-week periods. So you get to really like set what your curriculum is and sort of gear it towards what you want out of the program, which is really great. And there is that mix of group work versus individual work throughout the program as well. I know finance and operations and the majority of electives did have a lot more group projects and stuff like that, but there are lots of classes that do have a lot more of individualized work that's required. So there was a storytelling class that I took, and that was a lot of individual work on the back end, but then you would meet with your like story pod each week before you went to your live session. And so you would get that, that connection with all of your classmates as well. So it is a really great mix of balancing that synchronous and asynchronous, and also getting to sort of network while you're in the program. So I really enjoyed the program so far.
Yeah, I think it's a surprise to some people that even in an online program, you do develop relationships with your classmates, which is really nice about being in a cohort. Justin, let's talk about that work-life family balance. How are you managing it, and what advice do you have for others that may be considering an online MBA?
Yeah, if you have a family or significant others or even children, it's I think personally really important to level set with your significant other prior, so they kind of have the same expectation or some expectations of when you go in, what to expect as far as like your time going into the program. In terms of, I guess, managing school and work, I personally found it really helpful, particularly with my family, to compartmentalize less. Like if I was feeling overwhelmed or pressure, I made sure to communicate with my wife. I even share with my kids, I'm also in school and I also have my own homework assignments to sit down and do. And so if I needed a couple extra, hours on the weekend to kind of sit, and they understood as well, luckily. But I think for me, that was the best. That transparency just helps keeps everyone involved. So it's not like just this separate thing you're doing, and they feel more inclined to kind of help you out and help you balance things when you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. Christina, how about you?
Yeah, definitely similar. I do have a 3-year-old daughter and I work full time. So it is a struggle sometimes to juggle all of that. But I think what was really helpful for me is to be open and communicate early and often with assignments for your management if you're working full time, and then for your team members as well. And I think that does help keeping the communication open. People really understand. A lot of people in MBA programs that are in online programs do work full time and they do have families. So you're not in it alone. And I've connected with so many individuals within my program on this subject. And it's really been everyone's super receptive to if you have to do things last minute or switch schedules around. So that really is great to hear from the communities within the online MBA programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, any advice?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything everybody else has said. It's setting expectations, right? If you go into this and just say, "Oh, I'm going to figure it out on my own," everybody else will just be mad that they don't have your time anymore. So my boys are a little bit older. One's actually a college sophomore. One's a high school sophomore. Who's an aspiring UF student, and so it's kind of fun for us to all kind of go through this together at the same time. It's all about communication, just like Justin and Christina were saying. If you can make sure everybody understands, especially your management or whoever your CEO or whoever you report to is, it's critical because you're not only gaining information for yourself, but you're also gaining it for the organization. So you can come back a stronger, better person for your team. You've
Yeah.
just gotta keep communicating.
Yeah, maybe you can get those sons to help you with some of your assignments now.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Hunter.
Yeah. So I kind of look at it as three buckets. The first bucket is work. You have your commitment to work. Second bucket for me would be my young family. And then the third is school, right? And so there's not a ton of room for other activities outside of those three buckets. But I will say, prior to engaging in, an online MBA program, I would say, talk to your family, let them know it's going to be a really big time commitment. And then maybe go ahead if you're very active or you're volunteering, whatever, maybe there are a lot of other things that you do outside of work. I would say kind of wind those down as you engage in going into an online MBA program, and just be open to your family and let them know what's going on. There will be late nights. There will be things where, sometimes you miss things or you're not at every ball game or whatnot, but it's definitely worth it. As long as you communicate to your family, let your team know if you're doing a team-based project, what's going on in your life. It can be a really positive experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Christina, I think a lot of MBA candidates are maybe a little bit, like you, where you kind of have the career path and the specific goals in mind and the sector in mind, but maybe overlooked sometimes are those softer, less tangible skills. Can you talk a little bit about what kinds of those soft skills that you're really getting at Kenan-Flagler and where they've been helpful?
Yeah, I'm definitely a more confident communicator and decision maker in my everyday job and within my personal life as well. I mentioned storytelling. That class has really impacted me a lot. Being able to tell a story in a way that engages your audience is really important in getting their input and their guidance and really being connected with the speaker. And so that's something that I really found useful within the program. And I think others would as well. But that's something that's intangible that you might not see in yourself until you get farther along in the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, any soft skills improvement you've noticed?
I think a lot of it is about kind of taking an outside approach to leadership and organizational behavior. So there's classes about it, but then there's also the theory and practice, right? Florida does a really good job of making sure you're thinking through not just how do I identify bottlenecks in a process, but how do I actually really work with people in a real world environment? It's been critical for me. Even the digital communication, when we talk about professional writing, how are you sending emails? Like, what is your tone? Is it just too much, right? A lot of times we're just very verbose. So those are a couple of good things. Then our cohort is kind of forced into teamwork a lot. And so it's those non-academic environments where you've got to communicate, you've got to make sure you're clear. You have to make sure that you're thinking about the way other people receive the information, not just the way you intend for it to be received. So Florida has put us in really interesting positions to do that and to do it often so that you get much more comfortable with it when you're moving into the business environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Hunter.
Yeah, I would say that at one of our marketing classes, we have a class based on strategic communication with shareholders along with customers and kind of how to approach those different groups. And our company actually puts out a monthly newsletter to our customers. And I was in the middle of this class thinking, this is incredible material I'm learning, and it directly kind of applies to my work and what I'm doing. And I took a risk, and I said, hey, I asked the marketing professor if she would take a look at our material to see, if she had any thoughts on our newsletter, maybe some feedback, because what better person to look at than someone who is studied on it and teaches it. And she actually said, I'll get back to you in a week or so. Give me some time. And I said, perfect. She came back and provided me, incredible feedback on how to approach the newsletter, what to take out, what to add. And that just in itself, it's a newsletter, but it added so much value to me. And that was about a year and a half ago. And we've taken that information that she provided to me, and we've implemented it in our company. And that was something that I'll never forget. And it's been really impactful because our communication's gotten stronger. And, that's the kind of level of teaching they have there at Tulane, and the kind of people they have. They go above and beyond to make sure their students are equipped.
Yeah, and having those resources available to you is so invaluable during that time, for sure. Justin, what about the soft skills that you're kind of taking away from the Tepper experience?
Yeah, so it's very similar to what what everyone else is kind of commenting on. I would say some of the top ones, developing greater emotional intelligence, time management, networking, and I think my adaptability primarily. And actually, maybe an example to highlight that last one. I had a class, and I forget what course it was, but we, it was group work oriented, and so over the course of the mini, we had this project that we'd work on from the beginning of the mini, and it was just this cumulative kind of project. So once we first met with our group, we had to kind of figure out, all right, what's the best time for us to kind of meet at least once a week, so we can kind of come with things, make sure we're on track. And so we started out, well, where's everyone located? And out of a group of 4, 3 of them were located in California, and I was the only one in New Jersey. So based on that, I had to just kind of, I think, and that happened, on several occasions, really. But learning how to adapt to something that really, feels very unfavorable, but to, for the greater good of the project and things, kind of having, everyone wants to do well, and we're kind of all this collaborating together. I learned how to adapt in that manner very often.
Very good. Thank you. So Chris, what do you think is the biggest hallmark of the Warrington experience so far? What are you gonna kind of take with you forever?
Oh man, that's probably the hardest question. You started with me. Nothing beats Gator Nation. The Alumni Association, everything about the University of Florida is all about helping graduates be successful. And I would offer that everybody on this call is going to say a very similar thing to that. What I'm going to take with me from this whole experience really is the outside experiences that Warrington College of Business pushes you to do, the global immersion experience where you're consulting around the world for different companies, even some of the experiential learning opportunities they give you, be it AI, ML type of integration in business, or business kind of simulations. There's so many different things that Florida and the Warrington College of Business have given us opportunities to pursue that we never even thought were possible. You couple that with the Gator Nation, the alumni. I'm thrilled to be a part of it and to kind of move forward post graduation to see where it takes me.
Absolutely. Did you do a global immersion yourself? What did you do?
I'm actually scheduled to do it. I'm going to go to Santiago, Chile, and I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Hunter.
Yeah, I would say that for me, the level of commitment that Tulane has to their students, even an online platform, it's still the same as they do in their in-person. And to give you an example, my wife and I welcomed a beautiful baby girl named Grace earlier in the semester. It was a fall semester, and we were scheduled for classes right that week when we welcomed our little girl named Grace. And we're obsessed with her, by the way. She's precious. And I reached out to the student success team, and they said, "Hey, we understand life happens, in the middle of the program. We'll let the professors know, ahead of time of what's going on." And turns out they did. And I was able to kind of get slowly back into the program about a week and a half later. And the respect that the professors showed when I was out for a week and a half, they said, "We'll work with you on your assignments. We'll let the teams know what's going on." And I really appreciated that. And then to go a step further to talk about how they engage with their students. About a month later, I get a package from Tulane's business school, and I'm thinking, what is this? And I open it up, and they submitted to me a beautiful little onesie for my baby girl. It had her whole Tulane swag on it, and I thought that was such a nice gesture. And also them just writing a nice note, saying, "Hey, we're excited for you and your family." So Tulane's commitment, like I said, to their students, online MBA, and the level of professors they have going on, talking about helping me with my newsletter and all the different things they have to offer. I've been very impressed with them. And that's what I take away is their commitment to building leaders and being with their students during the MBA program.
Well, of course, congratulations. That's so
Thank
special.
you.
And it does, kind of touch me that like you can have these connections even through these online programs, that they feel like they know you enough to send you the onesie. That's really sweet and special. Justin, what about you?
Yeah. So this one was probably the easiest for me. So honestly, the thing that I remember the most is the time I get to spend with my peers. And so I think I might have missed it when I was kind of talking about the structure of the program, but at the beginning of every mini, Tepper has this thing called an Access Weekend. And it's basically an opportunity. It kicks off every mini. So every 6 or 7 weeks, you travel to Pittsburgh for 2 to 3 days, and you get to network with your peers, your faculty, and really just the city of Pittsburgh itself. And every time, when the closer we get to the next Access Weekend, the group chats start going crazy. Hey, what are we going to do? What time are you going to get there? When are we going to meet? Let's hang out. And so it's always felt like a big family reunion. And I think having the opportunity to really build relationships with people that you're spending years with them, being able to walk away with true relationships with different people that I now have across the globe, that's really going to stick with me the most.
Oh, absolutely. Of course. Christina.
Yeah, I love this question. I feel like whenever you're looking at online MBAs, you don't really realize how many in-person opportunities they are. And I was really surprised by all of the different opportunities that UNC has available to the students. So similar to Justin, there's a summit that they have every quarter that's on campus. And so it's over the weekend, and you get to meet with all of your peers, and you have coursework, and you really get to interact with everyone. There's also global immersions, which are great. I haven't attended any of those due to, family constraints. And then there's also external activities. So there's something called the Washington campus that we partner with at UNC that I've done. And that's just learning about regulations within the DC area that relate to your field or to healthcare in particular. That's the one that I attended. And then there's also something called the STAR program, which I was fortunate enough to be a part of this coming term or this previous term starting in January. And it's basically like a mini consulting engagement for online students. So for those of us who aren't able to have a summer internship, we're able to still engage in this activity with a corporate partner. And we basically from January till the early May timeframe will engage with them, hold meetings with them, and we have a specific key question that we want to answer. And so you have all of those ups and downs of consulting that you would think you would normally have. So push back on the consultants or on the corporate partners asking for something different, pushing back on what they want the slides to look like, and then all of your wins that you have with your team. So we just held a meeting with our STAR leadership team last night, and we got some awesome feedback, and we'll be doing our final presentation to executives within our corporate partner their company at the end of this month. So I'm very excited about that. But there's just so many interesting ways to build bonds between other MBA students, also with faculty and with corporate partners, something you wouldn't think of that you'd be able to have access to in an online MBA program.
Yeah, that's such an important point. That real world kind of access and experience like that is, what a lot of times the program is about and what students are looking for. Because we have some extra time, let's talk a little bit about the connections in that alumni network, and building, MBA is all about networking. So let's talk about that a little bit in the online space and what you've been able to do so far. Justin, what are you finding about the Tepper network, and have you been able to access it at all?
Yeah. And so I think I mentioned before, I was really focused on a career change into getting into banking. And so I really wanted to make sure I had those connections to the alumni and those resources. And what was nice is that, I was able to really kind of get to know a lot of the full-time students because I would join the Graduate Finance Association, which is essentially anyone who wants to recruit into finance kind of joins this, and it kind of preps you for the recruiting cycle. But the full-time program offers, kind of web version so that all the part-timers can join, ask questions, get to know each other, get to know the full-time program, since we're technically going to be embarking in it together. We get to know the Master's Career Center. They work with you as far as helping you to really develop your resume, do mock interviews, and connecting you with alumni that they feel might be good for you to talk to, given the career or the industry that you want to get into. And really, I guess everyone that I've kind of reached out to, kind of especially during the recruiting cycle, all the alumni, the fact that I was doing it as a part-time student almost made it maybe more fascinating to them. So because it's just not something they see, and so I was more likely to get kind of introduced to other alumni because there was just kind of this additional layer of respect, which I thought was pretty cool.
Interesting. Christina, how about at Kenan-Flagler?
Yeah, the network for alumni is really great. There's a bunch of different online resources, and there's a lot of different team chats that I'm part of right now. So current students and alumni networks. I think that's something that I definitely am going to take advantage of, because I am going to be moving to Minnesota in the next few months. So I'm going to need to gather all of those resources that I can within the alumni network to try to get a job and also graduate and everything at the same time. So there's the career services as well. And so I'm reaching out to them. I have a meeting after this meeting's over, and I'll be talking to them on next steps. And that's available to students in the program and outside of the program as well. After you graduate as an alum, you're able to reach out to them whenever you need help with resume building, if you want to do a mock interview for a job interview or something like that. So there's a ton of resources available that are online for students within the alumni network.
Well, you're certainly going to get to put it to the test. That's awesome. Good luck for you. Chris.
Yeah, Florida has, I would say, three main things for alumni or even current students that are obviously about to graduate. So business career services really helps you get connected with other people in the Gator Nation who are either able to hire or know people who are looking to kind of bring new folks, new MBAs on. A lot of just MBA very specific, like, hey, you're going to get your MBA. These are spots specifically built for you. So BCS is huge for those who are looking to kind of pivot into a new role, like Christina. And then we have kind of weekend experiences. So it brings together online, full-time, the weekend kind of, and the executives. And so they'll all come together. And so you get to meet and network, just like Justin was saying. So we do that, every quarter, every 6 months. So you really get kind of a breadth of introductions, people from all over the place that you would never have met in any other environment other than that. And then there's a lot of MBA kind of focused tailgates, right? So all the alumni will come out, you go to the swamp, you have a football game coming up and everybody's there. So you can meet folks that graduated in 1977, right? And they'll tell you the stories about the good old days. And they'll say, well, I know a guy that might need somebody like you. So there's all those really neat ways. Again, we talk about Gator Nation all the time, but it is a real thing, just like everybody else has their alumni networks. And so we leverage it the best we can. And there's all kinds of ways to connect with those folks at Florida.
Great, great. And Hunter.
Yeah, our alumni network for Tulane is very, very strong. We also have a career. So I'll talk about first while you're in the program. First of all, you can network within the cohort, right? It's always a good place to start. These people are going to be doing, life with, and essentially probably, around the same age. And those are great people to get to know and to network with, to start with. And then we have a career center that they help you out with, resume building and different mock interviews and things like this to prepare for when you graduate, and also for introductions while you're in school as well. And then in terms of accessing, for me, the alumni network, after I graduate, I haven't had a chance to access that. However, our chapter specifically for our city, which is Houston, has already reached out to me and invited me to come to many of their networking things. I just haven't been able to do it yet because I've been focusing on school, but the network is strong. And so I'd say no matter where you are, there's most likely a chapter that is there near you to get involved with and for introductions and things like that.
So, well, absolutely. Well, Hunter, we'll stick with you for the last question here. The viewers who are coming to videos like this are people kind of where you guys have each been in the decision process, looking at all their options. So what advice do you have for that kind of person considering an online MBA generally, and maybe your school in particular? Hunter, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would start off saying, if Tulane is not already at the top of your list for an online MBA program, I think it should be. And the reasons I mentioned earlier, their commitment to their students while they're in the program. I gave you guys a story of them going above and beyond, connecting with an online student. They didn't have to do that, but they wanted to be engaged with us. And then also the professors, most of them have industry experience, and that adds a ton of value when you're actually in the working world trying to get things done. And to mention the newsletter story, that professor went, above and beyond to help her student make sure that, we had put our best foot forward. And that's amazing. And then the business school itself, the brand is very strong. We have alumni all over. And we've been, like I said, we've been very much engaged with them, and there's opportunities within that network that are very strong. And then lastly, I'd say there's no perfect time to do an online MBA program. You're going to the ducks will never all line up, right? I would say just go for it. And I would say reach out to our admissions team at Tulane. We'd love to connect with you. And I say, if you have any other questions regarding, student experience or maybe something that we didn't touch on, I'd love to connect with you as well through our email here after this session.
All right. Thank you so much. Justin.
Yeah, I guess I echo a very similar sentiment. I think that I would say truly examine different programs. They're all different. They're all going to attract different types of people. Tepper is an extremely rigorous program. And so I know it's at the end of the day, you want to understand what the expectation is from you as a student for each one. Like I said, Tepper is very group focused. It's very rigorous, and that may not be for you, but there are other programs that have kind of different characteristics that may fit you better. So I think just really understand what your program offers, and also have a clear objective in mind, something that's going to help you keep you grounded, because there are going to be times where you may feel overwhelmed, or jaded, and you want something that you can kind of tether to kind of help get through those moments. I'd say definitely just Tepper should also be at the top of your list as well. Definitely those things. Have a clear objective, and really just do your research for different programs.
Yeah, I think some people say that's called knowing your why, or having a strong why. And I think that is really important for people deciding whether they're going to make a leap or not. Christina.
Yeah, I was literally just going to say that. You took the words right out of my mouth. Understand your why. Definitely understand your why. That's going to guide you. And it's also going to help you to be energized whenever you're feeling like you have too much work to do and you really have to buckle down, and really remember why you're in the program and that you will get something out of it after the program's over. UNC does a great job of being supportive throughout all of the different phases of the program, and the professors there are really there to support you. I've received everything. I think every single professor that I've had a course with they've sent me their personal email address or personal phone number, and I still send messages to some of them asking questions related to my work during the day, or just sending a picture of a group chat, something from one of those summits. And so I think that is really what sets UNC apart. They have a great alumni network, and the coursework is definitely going to challenge you. The core courses are really rigorous, but they're also there to get you set up for success after you graduate. And so the core courses are there to set you up, but your electives will allow you to choose your journey and hear what your classwork you would like to get out of the program. And so I think that is something that will allow you to grow as a leader and individually within the program.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. Programs have different amount of electives offered and different emphasis. And if you want to tailor, looking at that is certainly something people need to consider. And Chris, last word to you, please.
Yeah, of course. Thanks. Justin, I think said it really well that everybody has a different reason for getting an MBA, and you've got to kind of weigh out what makes the most sense for me. What is your why, right? Like Christina said, University of Florida, for me, number one ROI for online students, and me specifically and personally, it's the number one online program for veterans and military.
Oh.
Those were really heavy weighted items for me. But once I got into the program, I realized that not only is it great for, what's coming in the future, it's great for what I'm getting right now. It's top-notch instruction. It is a cohort of people that are trying to do the same things you're doing, and you're leaning on them. So you're developing those relationships. Just like Hunter said, Florida should be at the very top of anyone's list when they're looking at doing an online MBA program.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all for your great insight and expertise into your programs. You all are clearly have a lot of great information to give for people considering those programs. And of course, to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. We have a lot more panel sessions with other top programs on our YouTube page, and you should definitely check those out. And as always, we have lots more program-specific information at poetsandquants.com. And until next time, thank you for listening.